Hi guys, it's Amanda and today I'll be reviewing Sarah Dessen's Just Listen. This was the October book for the Sarah Dessen Book Club and I quite enjoyed it. It was okay. I gave it 3.5 stars. As usual, the review will contain a non-spoiler section at the front and then I'll let you know when I'm going to start having some spoilers in it so you can disappear and read the book if you haven't yet read it. Annabelle seems to have the perfect life. She's one of those golden girls who is top of the food chain at high school, who's beautiful, and in her case she's a model. However, things aren't so perfect as they seem. Just before summer break, something happened, so her best friend Sophie's no longer talking to her and everyone chose sides and they all chose Sophie's side. So Annabelle is now a social pariah and completely isolated. Her sister's suffering from an eating disorder that puts a lot of stress on her mum, which means that she doesn't feel like she can tell her mum that she really wants to quit modelling because she just doesn't enjoy it anymore. So maybe her life's not so perfect after all. Enter Owen. Owen's the bad boy at the school. He's only been there for a short amount of time, but he's already being suspended for punching a guy in the face. However, despite this reputation, he's kind and generous and always trying to make Annabelle smile. So she's thrown into a whole new world full of music and completely different crowds, but she's still not being completely honest. I found that this book was not as good as other Sarah Dessen books that I've read. One of the main reasons that this book did not rate so highly with me is I did not like the main character. I did not like Annabelle to begin with, and I found therefore the author had to really work to get me to like her, and while she did grow on me, I felt that maybe it was because I felt sorry for her situation more than actually liking the character. It got to the point where all of a sudden I thought she was so sweet for doing things which I would think normal kind things to do, like being nice to someone, was all of a sudden, wow, look, she's so nice, when in reality any decent person would be doing this sort of thing. I didn't like the fact she had no backbone. She just accepted everything that came to her. While I don't necessarily think that all female characters need to be kick-ass heroines, I do like them to be able to stand up for themselves at least a little bit. Even by the end of this book, she hadn't really ever stood up for herself that much, which was disappointing, I think, because she had so much room to grow and she just didn't. Owen too, I was a little bit disappointed with after reading The Truth About Forever, where Sarah Dessen made me fall in love with Wes because he was just such an amazing leading male character. I really was expecting that again and I didn't find it. I was disappointed with how Owen never really grew as a character, and I was disappointed not to be able to see more of him in that way. However, I think it was an interesting choice on the author's part because it did mean that the book was less focused on a romance and more focused on the other issues surrounding the book. The other disappointing factor for this book for me was that in Sarah Dessen's books, the things I love about her are how either in conversation or in the narration she manages to put in these really beautiful phrases that you just love and just resonate with you and make you want to stop and reread that. This didn't have any of those really beautiful quotes which I've come to expect from Sarah Dessen, and it was sort of disappointing in that aspect. She did come close a couple of times and there were a few ideas that could have got there, but it just wasn't there the way it is in other books of her books, so I was sort of disappointed because that's what really makes me love Sarah Dessen's writing style. That's it for the spoiler-free section. If you haven't read this book and you would like to, I strongly suggest going and reading it before watching the rest of this video. The big secret about what happened at this party I thought was pretty obvious from the start. The fact that he raped her was not surprising to me at all, but at the same time I was sort of disappointed with how it was dealt with. At first I understood like her hiding it away and everything, but in the end it was Emily that went to the police and it took forever for Annabelle to actually stand up and say it had even happened, and even then it was only dealt with very, very briefly, and I was sort of surprised by the fact that this had happened hadn't affected Annabelle's relationships. Like, she didn't seem to have any problems going into a physical relationship with Owen at all, and it sort of didn't quite sit quite so right with me. With other books that I have read around this sort of topic, there's always the girl who's wanting to learn how to defend herself afterwards, or the girl who's afraid of physical contact afterwards, or some sort of idea that what she's been through has affected her. but it didn't seem that the rape had actually affected anything other than her social standing. She didn't tell anyone about it, which I can understand, but other than that, there was not really any issues she had to deal with surrounding it. She wasn't worried about personal relationships, she wasn't worried about it happening again, and that's where I think it fell down. I think that if you're going to broach this issue, you need to really think about how it's going to affect the character a little bit more, because any issues that she had before the rape happened, and then she sort of half resolved them towards the end, but it wasn't really covered that well. I think the problem was she was trying to touch on too many deep issues in the one book, because in the same book as she had this rape, she was also talking about the sister's eating disorder and anger management, and there was all this stuff she was all trying to focus on in one story, which, with all these characters having big storylines, you aren't going to be able to go in depth as much as you would like about the specific issue. It was still an enjoyable read, and while I didn't like Owen, I thought he was good for her and he kind of worked. It was just sort of a little bit flat as far as Sarah Dessen's books go. Okay guys, that's it from me. I'll see you next time with a new video. Bye guys!